whether it's greenhouse gas emissions, whether it's public health risks, biodiversity, species loss, India is going to be a hotspot of this if we don't make changes now. Just to give you a quick intro for some of you who may not know, I know this is a topic of much interest now and people are becoming more conscious of this data, but just to give you a quick, and I think this was referred to in the earlier presentation slightly as well, of the 50% of land that is used for agriculture, 77% of that is dedicated to livestock. Of that, we can only get 33% of the total protein, which is a very, very inefficient way of getting such a high value nutrient that Indians specifically are in dire need of. Why is that? I'll just explain really quickly. Cycling calories through animals, through producing animals. Let's take the example of a chicken, which by the way is the most efficient animal that you can produce using the least amount of calories from food. You need 9 calories from animal feed to produce 1 calorie of meat. And this compared to beef, which goes up to 40 calories of animal feed for 1 calorie of meat. This is simply a very inefficient way of taking away land and feed that is fit and can be made fit for human consumption and consuming it through animal proteins. Besides that, other agricultural inputs, whether it's land, water use, fertilizer use, all of those also are much higher for animal proteins than they are for plant-based or alternative proteins. I won't go too in-depth into this. There are just 3 primary challenges that arise out of animal agriculture: climate change and environmental degradation. I think, like I said, there's mounting evidence to prove that the way we eat affects our planet. And all international organizations, climate bodies, everybody is now in tandem in saying that we have to reduce our meat consumption if we need to meet our Paris climate goals and any other sustainable development goals. Moreover, it also takes away land from crops that can be grown for human consumption, leading to issues like food insecurity and malnutrition. Talking of malnutrition, it also has other public health risks like zoonotic diseases, like antimicrobial resistance because animals are pumped with antibiotics to make them grow faster, etc. And also future pandemics. Now, what is the solution? Can we ask people to quit meat? Meat is delicious. We all know that to be true. Animal products, dairy, especially in a country like India, we all know that it tastes really good. And you can't ask people to just quit. You can't say, hey, eat chickpeas, don't eat chicken. That's not an efficient solution. So what is the solution? We do need to be able to address some of these challenges in a way that meets the consumer demands, but is not a drastic change like, hey, let's all go vegan overnight. But what it is imperative for us to do is to supplement the current protein sources with other alternatives that are more sustainable. Enter smart protein. Why we call it smart protein is something I'm going to explain now. The alternative protein sector, as it's called globally, is at the forefront of global food innovation with major benefits for people, planet, as well as profit. It's food that's made to taste the same or better and cost the same or lesser than its animal-derived counterparts, but it has vastly lower impacts on planetary and public health, and that's why we call it smart protein. Around the world currently, innovators are creating meat, eggs and dairy using the different technologies of smart protein, made either directly from plants, from cells or from microorganisms. At GFI India, we define smart protein products not as the old school soy products that we hear of, whether it's soya chunks or mock meats, but as next generation products which can reliably and predictably substitute animal-derived products and give you the same sensorial and cultural experiences that we know and love that we get from animal products. And this is possible through a simple switch and not a sacrifice. To give you a quick intro into the landscape of smart protein, how we divide the 3 modalities is plant-based, which I'm sure most of you know about. Plant-based meat and plant-based proteins use plants as the building blocks to biomimic meat, eggs, and dairy products. Then there is fermentation, which is fermentation and precision fermentation, which uses microorganisms like fungi, bacteria, and use those, and this is a very emerging field. They use these microorganisms to produce either standalone proteins or to create functional ingredients that can then be used to make these proteins. Finally, there's cultivated meat, or how you may know it as cell-based or lab-grown meat, which is essentially meat. It's the same composition of meat, but without the animal, without the slaughter, without the negative externalities. So these are the three basic modalities that come within smart protein. Now, over the past few years, there have been great strides made in this space, also in India. We have currently over 56 brands with 300 plus SKUs, over 30 different formats currently in the market. Of this, around 10 companies are working in deep tech innovation like precision fermentation and cultivated meat. Having said that, there is still a long way to go. Getting to a thriving mass market requires substantial product improvement, which is going to take a lot more investment in primary research and a lot more talent coming in from all corners of experts who understand the foundations of meat. Now, this is where computational gastronomy holds a lot of promise. Unfortunately, we are bound by the fact that there isn't enough publicly available information on flavors, combinations, processes, and nutrition that can be leveraged. Just to give you a little anecdote of mine, since Dr. Bagla mentioned my restaurateur experience, I had started a plant-based restaurant back in 2017, and I was determined, razor focused on replicating all the animal-based foods I liked and replicating them to the plant-based versions and making sure they came as close as possible to their animal-derived counterparts. Now, as an untrained cook and not from a scientific background, I had to do a lot of research, a lot of trials, hits and misses, etc. But I got to learn a lot. And I learned a lot of interesting things that even chefs, trained chefs, don't necessarily know about, because plant-based is not such important and part of culinary education yet. It is in some places, but not as much. I learned that if you ferment certain nuts, you can get cheesy undertones. I learned that if you can make whipped cream out of aquafaba, which is essentially the water that chickpeas leave behind after they're boiled. I learned that if you process and cook raw lentils, you can get a gelatinous texture similar to tofu. I also learned about flavors like kala namak. Adding them to foods can actually give them an eggy flavor. I learned about ingredients that can add umami to food, whether it's things like nutritional yeast, miso, wasabi, nori. All of these things can add depth to plant-based foods that are trying to mimic animal-based foods. Now I would like to imagine would like you to imagine being able to do this kind of experimentation, but optimized with artificial intelligence and at lab scale. Truly being able to make science out of culinary art, which I think are two strengths that most of you together have here. We are living through an era of accelerated change when it comes to artificial intelligence and machine learning. In a short duration of 25 years, we've seen a slim cell phone that we all are holding in our hands right now become a portable, interconnected supercomputer with so much data. Artificial intelligence and machine learning and computation in general has proliferated almost every industry to solve fundamental questions and problems. And this has been possible because of three reasons. Our ability to embed artificial intelligence in all of these industries has primarily is because of exponential data growth, growth in the processing power, as well as drastic reduction in the cost of data storage. You can see what the artificial intelligence market is valued at currently and what it seems to look like it's going to grow at. Now, when it comes to applying these technologies to food, and more specifically to animal-based food and meats, we first need to advance our understanding of how people eat, what they eat, what kind of why people love certain foods. For that, we have to extrapolate regional meat-eating behaviors, whether it's by looking at traditional recipes, food processes, flavor compositions, etc. The biochemistry of food dictates its flavor, and then accordingly our preferences for it. Therefore, we believe that a significant portion of improvement in smart protein is going to come from an interdisciplinary model that combines food science, nutrition, computational gastronomy, and biotechnology. With access to stores of data on why food tastes the way it does, why certain combinations work and why some of them don't, and why certain profiles, when you change them around, change the very culinary footprint of food. This can provide unique insights of food innovation, especially in the case of smart proteins. I would like to congratulate Professor Bagla and his entire team of students here who are already doing path-breaking work in this space, in being able to apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to impart flavor to our food by building algorithms and databases that investigate the different aspects of food by mapping recipes, flavors, spices, nutrition, as well as health. This data has a lot of potential, not only to shape our culinary habits, but also to drive innovation of products, more specifically smart protein products and cell-based and plant-based meats. But as a new sector and a new industry, of course, it is plagued with fundamental challenges. But I believe we also have scientific opportunities where we can apply these technologies. By applying artificial intelligence and machine learning to large amounts of data, we can come down to asking and answering fundamental questions around why does meat taste the way it does, down to the molecular level. And being able to answer that question can be transformative for this industry. Now, what are some of the challenges right now? As has been discussed already in a couple of presentations earlier, prepared food has multiple sensorial components, right? And we need to deeply understand each of them, which needs a lot of data. And we need to know the list, the concentration, the proportion of all the molecules, how they interact with each other, how they interact with our bodies, and a lot of times it can be very personalized and individual as well. Data analytics, therefore, will be eminently useful in trying to achieve the exact tones in smart proteins in plant-based foods and in cell-based foods. However, we still need the data and the tools to understand this, to understand the biomolecular basis of flavor that differentiates, say, a cod fish from a salmon fish, from a pomfret, etc. To give you an example, currently we use the technology of extrusion to get meat-like textures in plant-based foods. But the texture of mutton versus chicken versus different kinds of fish is very different, and this is a complex problem to solve, which of course, if we are able to embed computer vision to this, we will be able to iterate much faster and reach answers and be able to create these differentiated products much faster and create this next generation of products. Moreover, our ability to create better smart protein products we need to improve that across the value chain, and that starts all the way from crop optimization, all the way to texturization, to processing, formulation, etc. When we apply artificial intelligence and computation in general to all of this, we can improve all of these things across the value chain. We have a great toolkit in our hands, and it's called the plant kingdom. We have 392,000 species of plants, of which we currently consume a very small portion of commercial crops that we grow for food. So what we need to do is expand this toolkit. Using a food systems and food science approach, expand this toolkit, and in a country like India, where we have the agriculture, biodiversity and indigenous knowledge, we can diversify this toolkit to grow more pulses, more lentils, more millets, etc. But currently we do have our hands tied behind our back because of lack of funding, because of lack of foundational data, and also because a lot of this data is not publicly available. So what's the way forward? We need to marry the advancements in food science with computation, and this intersection can get us to the next generation of products. Data-driven research and product formulations that emulate India's most popular meat preparations can transform the food landscape by effectively leveraging data-driven innovation for better taste, nutrition, and health. Essentially, just to summarize, the foundations are still being built, so we're still just scratching the surface when it comes to smart protein innovation and computation. A lot of work has to be done in unlocking flavors, processes, textures, etc. And these are all very hard scientific problems to solve, some of which you are trying to solve currently. But we do believe that these are problems worth solving for all the reasons that we discussed earlier. What we need today is investment in primary research that is interdisciplinary. We need food scientists, data analysts, biotechnologists, culinary artists, chefs, all of you sitting here in the audience to come together, along with creating avenues for access to this open databases and research. I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about Good Food Institute. Now, at the Good Food Institute India, we are at the forefront of enabling this kind of path-breaking innovation. As Dr. Bhagl already said, we are the central expert organization in the space of plant-based cultivated and fermentation-derived proteins, also called the alternative protein sector, or what we like to call the smart protein sector. What we want to do is we want to meet the consumer's demand for meat, but in a meat that they love, but in a way that is better for the world and that is better for business as well. The Good Food Institute India is a part of an international network of non-profits with partners in Brazil, Israel, US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. We use the power of food innovation and markets to accelerate the transition of the world's protein supply away from animal-based proteins to alternative proteins. We use unique insights from science, industry, investment landscapes to establish this model in India, working on the ground up. We primarily function across 4 pillars. We have a science and technology team, which comprises of PhD scientists who work to advance and open source the foundational science of alternative proteins. We have a corporate engagement vertical that builds relationships with the world's largest food manufacturers, chefs, meat companies, restaurants, and retailers. Our innovation team provides support to industry, entrepreneurs, startups, etc., as well as to investors and financial institutions. Our policy team, finally, advocates for fair regulation of plant-based and cultivated meat to make sure that there is an easy path to market for products and there's better consumer acceptability. Since 2017, we have been on a national mission for smart protein to bring together different stakeholders in our effort to put India at the forefront of the smart protein space race. And put simply, we are building an ecosystem that can put sustainable, nutritious, delicious smart protein products on every plate. And we believe this will be the key to feeding 10 billion people by 2050, nearly a sixth of whom will be Indian. To quickly conclude, just to talk about data again, the first application of Google Maps and GPS systems was to help humans navigate, but that ended up transforming multiple industries, whether it was transportation, the likes of Uber, Ola, or logistics, eBay, Amazon, Flipkart, etc. Food industry, Swiggy, Zomato, and I think some of the Gen Z and millennials sitting here would also change the dating landscape with dating apps. So subsequent application of AI which we'll see is bringing us self-driving cars and trucks. And that similarly we believe that food is going to and has to change, and that data is the future of food. And just taking off from the great work that's already being done here to use data and data analytics along with experimental tools, I believe is going to take us in a direction where we are able to innovate in food, create novel recipes which haven't been heard of, all in smart protein, which are better for the planet and for the people. Thank you.